Hi, and welcome to the Healers Connection, the semi-monthly show that connects you with people and practices that might improve your life through healing, energy, cognitive shifts, and many other kinds of things. I'm Dr. Michelle Petacola, founder of Second Chance Secrets, a training facility, a training center to help smart men and women reinvent their lives after a loss, divorce, or major life challenge. And by reinvent, I mean create more meaning, more passion, more purpose in your life so that you have a more vital life. And what I have found often is that when you go through a major life challenge, it can be an opportunity for major shifts, if you choose to look at it that way. COVID, for example, has been an opportunity for major shifts. For me, I have started to look at things like driving, which I hardly do at all right now, my relationship with people, my work, the way in which I use time in general. And I invite you to focus again, because we are going into another phase of change as we step back into more interaction with other people. Whoever thought that that was going to be a challenge? But to take a moment to reflect on what's important to you before you get gobbled up and caught in the expectations and demands of other people. Today is March 8th. International Women's Day. So I would like to invite you to celebrate women from all over the world. And also to think about how important it is for us to step into our leadership. As the Dalai Lama said not too long ago, the solutions to the world rest on the shoulders of Western women. We have a lot of work to do. And tonight, we are going to have two amazing speakers who are going to help you to understand how you can really maximize your own feminine leadership. To be honest with you, I never thought about leadership when I started working as a coach. I thought it was for those big guys, like Martin Luther King or JFK. But since I have stepped into my own leadership, I have found that leadership is not something you're born with. Leadership is something that you learn day by day through practice. And that leadership is, in fact, essential to most of the work that we need to do in this world, whether it's being a coach or a manager or a bookstore owner, that what we're here to do is to help lead other people to make the right choices. The most important question I have found in being a leader is asking the question, why? Why do you want to be a leader? If you're being a leader for wimpy reasons, like somebody just gave you that job, or you thought it was your turn, this is not a good reason to be a leader. You need something that includes vision and purpose and is inspiring to other people, because that is what is going to get people engaged. And of course, leadership is about enrolling other people. Okay, who's making noise here? Okay, great. Sorry, I'm not used to all that car noise in the background. To help you to identify what your why is, I have a special gift to offer you, and it is my 5-day Life Purpose Challenge Kit. It is a lovely little kit that's full of directions and worksheets and video instructions and questions and answers that can help you to identify what is your true life purpose. And you can access this lovely little kit by going to releasebrilliance.com. If you put that up in your browser, you can go right there. fill in your information, and you can have access to this kit. Without further ado, I want to invite my first guest up to the stage. But before she comes, I need to give you a little bit of background about her. Harriet Tubman Wright, MS, MA. She is the director of the Wright Resort. Her program, Your Soul Safari to Success, guides spiritual women entrepreneurs, executives, and change makers to live their soul's calling, to transform businesses, workplaces, communities, and the world. She regularly engages in groups with her dynamic, interactive talks on feminine leadership, soul power, and holistic health, captivating audiences with humor, wisdom, while providing practical tools and inspiring people to take vitalizing change, that is, undertake vitalizing change. She is a natural leader, that's something to say, and skilled professional who works magic. I would like to now bring Harriet to the stage. Hi, Harriet. Great to have you on the Healers Connection.
I'm pleased to be here.
Awesome.
And I'm pleased others are here with us.
Yes, isn't that amazing? That is one of the cool things about this particular show, is that we actually have a live audience. I would like to begin by asking you, what was your path to leadership? Were you born a leader, or was it foisted on you, or how did you become a leader?
I think I am a natural leader, and it was demonstrated in elementary school. I was the most outstanding citizen, and I ran for school president when I was in junior high school, and I lost by 3 votes. I was so crushed. However, it enabled me to be first violin under a very famous teacher. And so I expressed my creativity in that way. I was also part of the Modern Dance Honor Society. So I really became a leader from a very young age, and have assumed I was directing the Black Women's Unit. And I was the first woman to work as regional representative for Church World Service in Nairobi, Kenya. And so my leadership skills were recognized and utilized.
So I have a question. Of course, this is, the psychologist in my background. Was your mother a leader?
My mother was a teacher, and my father was a doctor. However, I am a teacher, not a classroom teacher, but I'm a teacher, and I am definitely a healer. So I contribute those qualities to my parents and my ancestors.
You integrate that. That's awesome. So I was really pleased to hear about your creative background, the first violin and the dance. Was it dancing? Is that what you said?
Modern dance.
Modern dancing. That's awesome.
I used to make all my own clothes. I was a fashion model. All of these things, which really was my healing and my salvation. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm not smart. It means that my creativity is what really has enriched my life and my capacity to work with others. I got into Alter Your Life with Spirit and Style. So I was creating beauty, in a spiritual context.
And isn't that what this world is about? Living in this world is experiencing all the wonderful sensations, sight, sound, texture. And that's where you get that in art, sound, music. So it's wonderful to hear that. I didn't know that about you, and I'm delighted to hear that about you. So more recently, how have you been a leader in your community?
Basically through the Wright Resort, your Soul Safari to Success. And, right now we're going through a major paradigm shift. And as a global society, I believe we're coming through the birth canal. And that means profound, radical, transformational change. And so the question is, what wants to be born in, through, and as me now? Who am I being and becoming as I look to what must be transformed in businesses, organizations, communities, governments, in our educational and economic and political systems? And so when we come together as women collectively and collaboratively, we create a new paradigm of feminine presence and an enduring legacy of social change. And that's what women leaders, young and old and in between, because this is what time it is. This is the way that we are shifting in the world, and it is truly our role, our purpose, our present to have, as the Dalai Lama said, women transforming the world. And for me, that's healing.
So that's interesting, because how do we transform the world? Sometimes we think that might mean, sometimes I think that might mean manning the barricade, standing out on the street with signs, or is there some other way in which we bring about that transformation? Is there something more spiritual, something more energetic that's involved? And I'm curious to see what your ideas are on how do we bring about this transformation?
Well, I consider through women's revolutionary leadership. And as women, we have the innate qualities of birthing, whether it's a child or an idea, a business, birthing, tending, cultivating, nurturing, creating, harvesting. These are innate feminine qualities. And these are the qualities I believe that are necessary to restore balance in the world. And when I talk about balance, I think about the goddess Ma'at. She was an ancient Egyptian goddess, and she was considered essential for the stability of life. And so she represents truth, order, balance, justice, harmony, righteousness, and reciprocity. So it was beyond being a goddess. Ma'at became the focus for leadership and philosophy and law. If you think about ancient Egypt, they placed a lot of emphasis on the afterlife. Well, when someone, died.
Oh, that word.
Her symbol was an ostrich feather. And so the ostrich feather was put on a scale, and their heart was put on a scale. If the scale was even, they were worthy of a good afterlife. If it was not even, oh well, snatch.
Oops.
And so when we talk about balance and order and harmony and justice, it is restoring. It's restoring a natural and harmonious. It's really the key to peace in the world. And it is, and so that's my definition of women's feminine leadership, or women's revolutionary leadership, really looking at and operating from our innate feminine qualities, as well as embracing the qualities of Ma'at to restore balance. And that means healing people and the planet.
I love the way in which you're expressing that. And I so totally agree with you that we really need to restore balance, that it has been way too much on, I guess you would call it the yang side as opposed to the yin side, and that life is all about balance. You cannot walk, you cannot move if your muscles don't go back and forth between contraction and expansion. It's always the balance between two forces. Mm-hmm. But seeing it not as conflict, but as balance. So I love how you express that. So I was curious, right resort, how did you get that name? It sounds like some kind of vacation destination. I'm
Well,
like,
when
oh
it
yeah,
was
sign me up. I want the spa.
when I lived in Nairobi, Kenya, I was in Malindi, which is on the coast. And I had this vision that I want a place to take care and be taken care of. And so that was the conception of the Wright Resort. It was conceived as a physical plant. However, I actually physically conceived. I had a son and came back to the States with an infant. And so I have responsibility. So
Oh
I got a
yeah.
job, several jobs actually, another master's degree. And at the time that when he completed UC Berkeley, I said, I've done my job. I'm out of here. And that's how and then I started the Wright Resort. And I was doing live events on a part-time basis. But when I retired, I started on a full-time basis, and I was doing live events, what I call salons, pulling primarily African-American women and other women, sometimes in my home, sometimes in other homes. Then there was a place near the Merritt nursing place up on Pill Hill that I did live events on a regular basis, and even in at church facilities. Then it got to a place where you couldn't do live events anymore. So it's been virtual, a combination of virtual and live. And as soon as lots of financial blessings come my way, we will definitely co-create a live Wright Resort.
That will be awesome. I love it. I love it. I'm curious about this paradigm shift and how you define women's revolutionary leadership.
Well, that's what I was talking about when I talked about the innate feminine qualities and the ma'at, and becoming a revolutionary leader. There's some qualities or some points that I'd like to make. How does a woman become a revolutionary leader? And it begins, obviously, for me, body, mind, spirit, self-care practices. The line, we're taking care of everybody else, but we have to start with taking care of ourselves. And so, the daily exercise, the good nutrition, but number 2 is the mindset. And you talked about that. And that's cultivating positive thoughts, words, and actions. 3 is maintaining healthy boundaries. And this means no, thank you. No, not at this time. No. And 4 is taking time out for pampering and for play and for quality time in nature. Also, number 5, celebrating our wins, our successes, our milestones. It may not be complete, but celebrating the progress along the way. And lastly, to create a home workspace that supports you in maintaining body, mind, spirit, health, and wholeness. If it's a little water fountain, if it's incense like I had, if you, a way, using feng shui, having your plants, those are ways that you support the notion of self-care, or some of the ways that you can support. And that's where it must begin. I think we also, and you talked about this, is being clear about our soul's calling, our true purpose, our true passion. Too many of us have done things that were, we come home more stressed than when we left, because it wasn't, we were not operating from our true essence, our true passion. The other thing, of course, is taking the course, Women's Revolutionary Leadership, that begins toward the end of the month. And I think the final thing is to be present in your divine feminine. That means connecting with other women leaders and managers and change makers who are also ready to help heal humanity and the planet. In other words, this is not the time of the Lone Ranger is over.
Mm.
We must operate collective, or I suggest we operate collectively and collaboratively, which means everyone has something to bring to the table. What I know as an elder, young people know more than the technology. And if they're thinking 7 generations, they're much more invested in how we heal this planet, how we create peace and justice. So I want to connect with those young ladies as well.
That's awesome. So we have a comment, and I want to invite all of you who are here to put your comments in the chat, or if you have questions for Harriet, to go ahead and post them in the chat as well. So Kathy says, I so love all you're up to, Harriet. The new paradigm that prioritized the innate feminine gifts of truth, order, justice, balance, and stability. My program is called La Femme Salon, to encourage women to embody their divine feminine essence, celebrating the amazing women they already are and are choosing to become. Together we rise. Awesome,
Yay
Kathy.
for you.
Yes, yes. And here,
sisters.
yeah, there is not, we don't need to compete, because there is room for every one of us.
We each bring a talent, a skill, a gift.
And like you said, the only way it can be birthed is through this collaboration. So I just love what you're creating, and I'm going to be so happy to connect with you.
Thank you.
Awesome. That's fabulous. Does anybody else have any questions while we're taking a pause here? Does anybody have any questions for Harriet? I think I still have a few more questions here that I can ask her.
Okay.
Well, not too many, you've interwoven a lot of stuff in there, and then I'll have to kind of get, out of the box, and I'll ask you all sorts of kind of strange questions. But
that's okay.
you have, how can a woman, you have this nice ideal, but what's the practical stuff that we need to know about becoming a revolutionary woman? And by the way, I want to make sure that all of you know that she puts the R in a parentheses. So the idea is we are evolution, are evolutionary, right? Are evolutionary.
That's I really studied with Barbara Marx Hubbard, and of course she was about conscious evolution, and of course we are evolving. And we're at a place where deep, radical transformation is it, and it could be called a revolution. You know what? I believe that Mother Earth and Mother Nature are going to be here whether we are or not. So it's up to human beings. And we know from the beginning of COVID, when we weren't out and about, and you saw all, nature was thriving without our interference.
True enough. They were like, wow.
Yeah. So,
oh, good. We got some elbow room now.
I really believe that it is about the collaboration, because everyone brings a gift, a tool, a resource to the table, and it is together that we create the world that we want to live in, that our children and grandchildren can live in. And just let who was, I guess it was we said, can't we just all get along? Rodney King, can't we just all get along? Well, maybe we can and maybe we can't, but as women, it's certainly, I feel, important that we move forward together, because that's how change at this era in our lives will occur, together.
So Jeannie has a question. Is the revolutionary referring to the individual woman and how she leads, being leader in a revolutionary way, or does revolutionary mean revolutionary C?
And I didn't finish causes, the revolutionary causes, like the causes that you support.
I think it can mean both, because there are several organizations that I support, including Congressperson Barbara Lee. But the Legal Defense Fund, organizations that are doing what they're doing, their purpose, they're making change. And so when I say revolutionary, I mean the person who is ready for a deep transformation, who is transforming herself and wants to help co-create a world that is transformed, where there is equity, where this thing called white supremacy, or that those things are not what is in the way. We value the differences, because it's the differences that connect us, if we choose to see it in that way. So revolutionary really just means profound and radical change in my mind. That's how I'm people know that Angela Davis was my shero when I was in college and decided, well, I'm not going to be a teacher because every one of these kids needs individual attention. I'm going to be a counselor instead. And her trial was going on, and I heard that she was a philosophy major. So I took 6 philosophy classes one semester, 5 philosophy classes in another semester, and I graduated in the summer. I came home and immediately went into the Ed Psych program to become a counselor. And I was a public school counselor until I saw how they were not treating certain people well. So I said, oh, well, I'm out of here.
So I think, Jeannie, that part of it is that you have to find what is resonant with who you are on a soul level, that becomes your revolutionary action, that not everybody needs to become, who's the woman we always talk about that takes care of the poor in India? Mother Teresa, right? That is not necessarily the job for everybody. There are certain circumstances or certain personalities that determine what it is that each and every one of us need to do. And we actually do the best when we are doing what resonates with our energy field and who we are. Would you say that's true, Harriet?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so yes, somebody else have something to say?
I was just going to comment that my work as I'm a coach myself who helps people find their gifts in their career. What I find almost universally, whether it's women or men or whomever, is that some people don't even know what their gifts are. But let's say that women know their gifts. I find a lot of times that there's a lot of difficulty or trouble claiming those gifts, really owning them. I mean, really saying, this is mine, this is who I am. Here's the very specific, not just a global, but here's the very specific thing that I can do, that I can contribute, that will make a difference.
Yes, and Jeannie, you've put your finger right on the major issue that most women deal with, which is that they don't know what their purpose is. And they may even be scared out of their wits to even find out what that is, because we have, as a gender, have been repressed for a long time. And it's just the nature of the culture that has been the consequence for a long time. And the dialogues that we have right now are part of the solution, is to keep on speaking the possibility, the vision. And that helps to start changing the way in which we think. It starts to change the brain. We are now at the half hour, and Harriet, do hang around there. I'll bring both of you on to the stage at the very end, but I want to give Linda a chance.
Thank you.
Is there
And
anything
I've also
last
put information in the chat.
Yeah. And was there something you wanted to offer that people could engage with you? I think you did put that in there.
Yes, at the very end, there's the free gift.
Great.
The 5 essential tools to lead the revolution toward love, light, and liberation.
Okay.
For change makers. and then more information about the upcoming class for Women's Revolutionary Leadership.
Awesome, Harriet. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead.
Mute myself.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Linda and call her on the stage. And Linda, oh my gosh, you guys are going to be so amazed about Linda. She is something else, and also a dear friend of mine. Linda is founder of Dare to Lead with Linda, an international speaker, best-selling author. Her book, No One Stood Up When I Entered the Room, One Woman's Journey from Command to True Leadership. She's a radio show host on Voice America, which is now in syndication, leadership expert, mentor, and trainer. She is a gifted communicator and regularly featured live and online on business panels, interviewed as a leadership expert, and as a popular speaker and seminar leader on topics related to business and leadership. She holds an MBA in leadership, a bachelor's in nursing, RN, a certificate in meeting management, various leadership positions in professional associations, major organizations, and the military. She was a U.S. Army major. Don't mess with her. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and invite Linda to the stage. Linda, welcome to Healers Connection. You are muted.
Something I want to create for the rest of this year is this little sign that has this round and it goes, "You are muted," so we don't have to say it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. It is something that we have to get used to, is that transition from silence to speaking. And maybe it's good. Maybe instead of seeing it as a mistake, it's actually a moment to pause, which is always good.
Yes.
So Linda,
Yes, ma'am.
I want to begin by asking you, what was your journey that brought you to move from a reluctant leader to stepping boldly into leadership?
Oh, this is my life story, actually. Long ago and far away, my grandmother told me that I should never stand up in front of groups of people and talk, that I wasn't very good at it. And she added to that, and oh, by the way, you can't make your own friends. I have to do it for you. So just stand back and I'll make it happen. Well, how can you be a leader when there's this wonderful little old lady standing in front of you, making friends for you and speaking for you and everything else? So I became very quiet and a reluctant leader. And yet I kept getting roles. I mean, one of my first leadership roles was in a dressage troupe in horses. And my coach gave me a Western trained horse for an English
Saddle.
situation. And he says, now, you can't direct rein him. You have to, it's like, Well, somehow I figured out a way to hide what he was, and that we actually won. And nobody noticed that he wasn't doing things exactly the way everybody else was. And this went on and on and on. I was asked by a post commander in my first duty station to manage or lead his recruiting team and to bring in high school seniors into the military. Now, this was during Vietnam. How popular was that? Not very. And yet there was something in what I said and how I said it. And I brought in twice as many recruits as my entire team together. I thought, well, maybe there is something about this leadership, but I'm not really sure. And so I've had other careers within the military. I was a basic training officer of 180 women. And the story you love is the fact that I got to stand on a parade field with 2,400 women across it and gave them commands. So I would say things like, battalion, attention, and everybody move at once. That is so powerful for a leader to recognize that you have that power of your voice and that people will listen to you. And it just kind of went from there. I went through corporate and entrepreneurship and found there's a very difference between the two of them.
So it's very much what I had said at the beginning, that leadership is something that you learn through day-to-day activity and experience. And having that experience, of course, you and I are both in Toastmasters, of standing in front of a group and speaking to them and seeing their reaction to you, that actually instills in you that sense of leadership, or part of it. I mean, it's not all of it, but it is a vital aspect of it, is seeing that you can influence people. And then you start to say, well, how does that happen? The next question I have is, your background, of course, is in military and corporate, where command is the norm. Mm-hmm. And entrepreneurial, where complete influential can bring challenges. I want to ask you about what you mean. How is influential? How does that create challenges? And what do you mean by influential?
Okay. John Maxwell is quoted as saying, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I totally disagree with him. I think influence has a very strong part. I loved what Harriet was talking about, her whole aspect and the spiritual aspect and bringing in the feminine and everything else. I believe that, yes, you need influence. You need that softer side to be able to ask questions, to be curious, to be compassionate, to understand what your people are going through, why they're having difficulties, or what they need to make them even better employees. But becoming their friend is not the best thing for a leader. I don't want to say it cuts your ability to have difficult conversations with people, because they know you too well and they know you as a friend. And friends don't do this to each other. So there has to be a separation. And what I love about command and influence, when you bring them together, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, is that it brings that balance. It brings that beautiful dance between the two sides of leadership in such a way that you can be the most powerful leader you can, and yet not be George Patton. And no, we are not related. He spells his name with an O and we spell it with an E. So we do have stories about him all across the country, by the way. But I do have to say that I believe there's a place for influence and there's a place for command. And it's how do you bring those two together that really makes you a strong and fantastic leader.
Yes, that is the $24,000 question. So I'm making an assumption here that when you work with women, that one of the challenges that you might have is helping them to step into their command in a way that doesn't become too aggressive, because what do? We model after what we've seen, our dads or our bully brothers or whatever. And then how do you help men to access the influential side? So say a little bit about that process.
Oh, Michelle, it's such a great question. Thank you. I do find that when I talk to women about leadership, any kind of leadership, they want to go, I don't want to be that leader. And what they're talking about is a woman who has embraced the masculine side. I mean, when I went into corporate, I was perfect because I'd spent 10 years in the military, and that's all I did was command. There was no influence in that. There was no emotion, there was no nothing. You gave commands, that was it. Now, I did step down and would work with my team. I had one team that was like 6 months behind in inputting data. And we were getting all sorts of requests from headquarters about, is so-and-so still a member? Is such and such still in the brig? What's going on with these people? And so I actually sat down and keyed in a whole bunch of our reports because they were so far behind, and they respected that. But I didn't lose the command. They knew if we were outside that they had to salute me. They knew that they had to call me ma'am, and that was okay. But they appreciated the fact that I wasn't so rigid in that I couldn't look at the good of the whole, that I wasn't just looking at what was good for me.
That's interesting. Go on. Sorry. Well, that's interesting because I found that when I took over the presidency in Heart to Heart, that when I threw myself in vigorously into bringing that club around, that literally my effort inspired effort in other
Yeah.
people.
Exactly. And you're the role model. As the leader, you are the one that they're looking up to, or at eye level to see what you do, how you do it, and to then emulate what you're doing. And I mean, I have to say, my guys were so excited about the fact that we were actually getting the paperwork down to, it was only a little stack like this. It was like they hadn't seen that in months. And I also taught them a process of how to make it happen. Well, when I went into corporate, all of my mentors and senior leadership were coming out of Vietnam. So they knew command. They didn't know influence. It wasn't something that they had learned. So I felt right at home. And again, with my units, I ran the training department for Bank of America in Southern California. And we rewrote all of the training programs while I was on maternity leave. And they would send their draft with my husband home, and I'd edit it, and then the next day I'd send it back through him to the unit. They were still in charge of the training material, but I was giving them the benefit of my experience and my leadership in that. And again, they were delighted. And I hated it when my Northern California counterpart would say things like, no, this isn't just quite right. I don't know why, but it's just not quite right. And people go, well, can you give us a clue? What's not right? No, I'll know it when I see it. How can you create and get to where she wanted them to be without being able to be more specific? So we had a conversation about that. I did not.
Did you get her to shift?
Yeah,
Awesome.
I got her to be more clear with me, and I could then translate that down to the people who are writing the program. There are all sorts of stories about her afterwards. Anyway, I found that I never became friends with my staff, and that was one thing that I did learn, that I learned in being an entrepreneur, because then you can't have those difficult conversations. And there's also this feeling of, well, I can just give it to Linda, she'll do it. And of course, I was that kind of an influence leader that I did a lot of their work for them. And that wasn't right either. So finding that happy ground in between was very vital for me to do.
It's tricky. And it's probably one of the most difficult things is when you are going from a place of being in the pool with everybody, and then you become a leader. And how do you transition to that place of leadership when you already have developed friendships? And you can actually go through a mourning process because you have to create those boundaries.
Well, and one of the things that I advised as an HR professional was, don't leave a leader who's coming up through the ranks in that same department. Find another place for them where they're new and they can exercise their leadership without feeling like they've lost all their friends. And it helps both sides.
Yes.
It helps both sides.
That's really, really valuable. Excellent. So do you want to say anything about confluential and what that means? That's a lovely phrase that you developed.
I did. I have to be honest with you, Michelle, and I was ready to throw the leadership towel in. I was either too commanding or I was so soft that my people just walked all over me, and I went, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make this work. And I, like so many, believe that the Western woman is going to lead, but how? What does she do? How does she make this happen? And how is she comfortable with that leader as well as the softer influencer? And you'd be proud of me because I actually sat down in meditation, which doesn't happen very often because my mind never stops moving. And what my guide said was, there's a new balance. You take command and just the calm. You take influence and just the fluence, and bring them together in that phenomenal dance that they have. So the calm is from command, the influence is from, or the fluence is from influence. And you bring, and I have more people want to make it confluence. There is such a term. It has to do with rivers, though it doesn't have anything to do with leadership. So it is COMFLUENCE, and it is trademarked.
But when you said calm, did you also think in your head CALM?
Yes.
Because I
Yeah.
love that. Calm and fluence, which is flow. So it's calm flow. How fabulous. I love
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. And what I saw, and I love Dancing with the Stars, even though it's getting a little bizarre, but I love the dances like the Paso Doble, the Argentine tango, those where the man provides the frame and the structure, which is command. And the woman brings in the flair and the lifts and the splits and everything else, and that beautiful flow of fluence. So when you bring them together, you know what powerful dancers can look like. And that's exactly what this brings to you as a leader.
Okay, so when you're dealing with women who are seeking to become leaders, how do you teach, how do you communicate something that is just not in the culture right now? How do you communicate to them how to be commanding without becoming, like that masculine, wiping away your femininity? How do you teach them that little balance? Yeah, that standing on point in a ballet dance. It really is. How do you find that center?
It is, but again, you look at the power in ballet of the male and female together. It's one of it is, how do you deal with your kids? You are not constantly influential with your children. If you are, they're running amok somewhere out in the neighborhood. So use that same motherly, in essence, command where your kids know what's the organization, what's the structure, what's the strategy, what do I have to do, what are the rules of engagement? And when you know that, command's easy, because then all you're doing is asking them to follow the rules of engagement. And then the influence gives you that love and that compassion, the way to deal with people in a feminine way, and to bring the two together. So I use it from a mother's perspective. If you as a mother were constantly letting your kids run all over you, they'd be, and you don't do that. You use command.
In fact, I used to work in a group home for challenged teenagers, emotionally challenged teenagers, sometimes juvenile delinquents. And I learned in that experience that you had to set rules, and you had to keep them if you were going to keep order. And I brought that experience to working in Toastmasters with people, particularly when people wanted to bend the rules.
Yeah.
Like, if I bend the rule for you, everybody's going to be knocking at the door wanting the same bended rule. I'm not going to do it. And that's where I learned to set those boundaries. And a lot of it is setting boundaries and saying, this is the way we do it. When I worked with the teenagers, I learned what was called rationale, that when somebody doesn't understand, you give the reason behind why it is that we have this rule. It isn't arbitrary.
Right.
Command is arbitrary. Confluential is, there's a reason for this and how this is actually going to help our community as a whole.
And if you have a vision, a mission, a set of goals, that is always the place to come back to. Does this support the vision and mission of our organization? If not, then we need to set a different rule. We have to be moving towards this thing that we've set ourselves up for. And command gives us that structure. Influence, it tells us how we're going to make it happen.
And how we're going to change or adapt if we need to. And so we work around that. It's a beautiful image. If anybody has any questions, you can start posting. Oh, there is a new message. Is there? Hold on. Yes. Confluence. Kathy, thank you for writing it in there. I love the little asterisk. I'm going to continue asking questions, but I will periodically look in the chat. So if you have a question, go ahead and post it there, or you can, if you find a pause in between my constant questioning, jump in there or put your hand up, and you will bounce right over to the left-hand corner, and I will see you and I will ask your question. So you have this lovely term, fire in the belly, working with individuals and organizations that have fire in the belly to see change in the global community. What are you talking about there? What are you connecting with here? Is this the world change that Harriet was talking about?
Yes, a lot of it has to do with what, I mean, Harriet and I surprisingly resonate very, very well together. We come from different sides of the coin, but where we're going is in the same direction. Where I started this whole thing was with movement. And women have things that they want to see happen in the world, whether it's you want to get more Democratic voters in the purple communities of Tracy, or you want to, bring hot lunches back to the schools, or books to the barrio, or whatever it might be. My whole teaching around leadership started with women who had a mission and had a movement that they were passionate about and didn't know how to speak their message and how to bring that. I almost want to say that command look, that you knew what you were doing, and you were not just mom, that you were, that you had that essence of, this is where we're going, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to make it happen. And that's where I started working with it, was the ability to speak your movement. What is it, and how can people get involved in it? The woman that I worked with in Tracy, she was amazing. She wanted to convert Tracy to a Democratic voting area, and she didn't have any volunteers. She had no one. She stood up on a soapbox, literally, in a park in Tracy, and she'd sort of put it out to friends and whatever that she was going to be doing this. She had 50 people show up. She almost fell off the box.
Wow.
She had no idea that there were that many people who were passionate about what she was talking about.
Wow.
And since then, she has created the Tracy Dems, and they go out and they bring people to the voting booths. They give them literature. They sign them up if they're not currently registered. And they are actually bringing in volunteers from other areas that are already solid blue, and they're coming in to support them and to go around and caucus the people in the Tracy area. And I'm so proud of her, because it's just a really, really great thing. And it was a little movement, it was a little thing. She just wanted to be able to do that. And we talked about how her presence would make that happen.
And that's a really good point, is how do you show up? And so part of the whole exercise in learning to be a leader is, how do you show up? How do you look? How do you present yourself that will say leader to people and they will listen? In fact, that's part of the thing that women need to learn, is how do you show up in a way that doesn't look like a female man, but that actually has that power of femininity, but the power, not, that kind of accommodating wimpiness that so many of us are taught. So we have some questions here, and I want to get to them, and then we'll get back. Okay. So Ellen says, for someone who does not demonstrate leadership or really get it, how do you transform them? Which was kind of like my question. I personally believe leaders are born, not bred. In listening to you, I get the impression that they can be bred or taught growth. Would you like to speak to that?
Actually, if I believed that, I'd never be where I was. I never would have stepped into the military, which is a male bastion. There's no question about that. I would not have survived the 10 years that I survived in the military. It wouldn't have been possible. And yet never really saw myself as a leader. As I said, I'm the coach to the reluctant leader. Yet there was something there, and other people saw it, and they kept promoting me to do things. And I did, and I learned it. And it is learnable. I teach a program called Awaken the Leader. And we do, it's going to be shorter, but it's 16 modules on leadership, the various aspects of it and whatever. And the women who have taken it from me at the end go, oh my God, I've made so much growth, and I feel so much more comfortable in my skin as a leader than I did when I started this program. And I've had women actually say to me, I wasn't going to take the course because it wasn't for me. I didn't think you could do anything to turn me around. And I'm amazed at what I've been able to do. And we do a lot of coaching, we do a lot of mentoring, as well as teaching the basics of leadership and the things that you need to know in order to be a competent leader.
And you know what? 9 times out of the 10, at least my experience, especially in the corporate world, is they'll put you into leadership, but they don't give you any training.
Exactly.
So you try, you kind of like model yourself after some bizarre idea you have of leadership, and you fall on your face. And then oh, well, I guess you're not a leader, when it really amounts to having a certain amount of training so that you know how to get buy-in, how to present things in a way that is forceful and does not create conflict. There are so many things that you can learn. So,
well, and we have in Toastmasters mentors. I think it's key to have a mentor. I hate to say a coach, but someone who you can go to and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this area, or I want to propose this project. I don't know how to do it without it sounding like a command. And to be able to talk through that and to present it and to get feedback, that's critical. When I entered leadership in the corporate world, all of my mentors were male. So all I did was reinforce what I'd learned in the military. I never knew how to use the feminine side until I came out and went entrepreneurial. And then the command was definitely not working. And my people were running to the hills, and my clients were doing the same thing. They'd be one and done. So, okay, there's got to be a better way. And started looking at the influence side and said, that's not it either. There has to be that structure and that strategy. And it's learnable and it's teachable. That's the beauty of it.
but you actually need to learn it through experience, and it helps if you have guidance and you don't have to do it by trial and error, because you can have a lot of errors. So Jean has also a comment here. Jeannie says, my own personal perspective is that one needs to be most aware of the culture one is working in. Military and corporate follow a very masculine model. Personally, I don't like to be commanded. I will resist or leave. I will, however, respond to a person who carries their own personal power, who asks me to honor boundaries, important, and keep focus on the mission, goals, etc.
Jean, I hate to say this, but you do understand the command side. And it's part of what you like about leader. It gives that structure, that strategy, that the organization that we're looking for in our careers, in our life. We don't want to run willy-nilly around the rat maze. We want to know how we get in, how we get through it, and how we get out. And to be able to do that takes a strong leader. I guess one of the most powerful pictures I saw was of General MacArthur. And this was actually in World War I. It happened to be a series of looking at key leaders in World War I and how that influenced them in World War II. And MacArthur is on the ground in France, no doubt. His troops are behind him, and he's standing up front going, come on, let's go, let's go. And they're running up to him, and he's staying with them or moving slightly ahead to show them where they're going. He was not back in corporate doing structure or strategy. He firmly believed you needed to be on the ground with your men and directing them. And what was funny was across the field was George Patton in the first tank, which was basically a wooden cart of some sort that had a gun on it. And my last boss in the military was General Depew. He was a 4-star general. I ran his protocol area. And what I found interesting was if you provided a logical reason for why you did something, or you figured out what he was looking for, it had to do with lunch. And I was told he always chooses chef salad. I said, he only chooses chef salad because it's the cheapest thing on the menu. And he doesn't want to burden his generals with, a huge lunch bill every day. So I said, well, let me see if I can make something happen. So I went to the chefs, had them create 3 other fabulous lunch meals that were less expensive than chef salad. I put one of them on the menu along with chef salad. And I watched him. He didn't even look at what it was. He circled the cheapest one, came back to my boss, and I went, see, he really doesn't like chef salad. So we get to lunch and there's this huge question mark on his face about, did I order this? Yes, sir, you did. I got called into his office and he said, Lieutenant, what was that? I said, that was lunch, sir. He said, no, my lunch is always chef salad. I said, not anymore. I said, you wanted the least expensive thing on the menu. Did you like it? He goes, I loved it. It was great. Are there more? I said, yes, there are 3 more. I'm going to have him add 2 more. You'll have a different one every day that you have a lunch meeting. He was delighted, but I questioned the why. I questioned why he was choosing chef salad all the time when we had these other great meals. Anyway, he was in Vietnam. He was the commander of the Brig Red 1, which is the first US Army. And he directed his generals. He expected them to use command and influence in their decisions. And he did not expect them to stay in headquarters. He wanted them out with the troops. And that was key. So he kept firing generals, and it got to a place where the Pentagon and the Senate come back to him and go, George, you can't do this anymore. We don't have any more generals to send you. You have to either figure out a way to train them or whatever. What they did was they brought him back home, and he created the Training and Doctrine Command, which is where I worked with him. And so, you get, and he created exceptional generals out of that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, Linda, we are out of time. I mean,
sorry.
not too terribly out of time, but I just wanted you to get in there and say what your free offer is. And I will make sure to put that also on my webpage when I put the video up, but to let people know how they can also interact or get further information from you.
Okay. To be honest, Michelle, it's been so long, I don't remember what my free gift was.
You have a link for, and I don't have the link, your ebook, Defining Leadership, a leadership assessment, and a 30-minute look at your assessment results. Wow.
Wow. That sounds really good. I think I'd like to have that.
Yeah, really.
I do have a link, which I will send you, Michelle, so I thought I had, so that you have all that. I find that knowledge is power. And when you know what your leadership capabilities are and where you use them, I mean, the assessment is really around 12 different key skills of leadership that comes out of my Reluctant Leader book. And then to have a chance to talk to me about, well, I'm strong here, but I'm not here. What does that mean? And that kind of thing. So yeah, and the best way to reach me, I'll put in the chat my email address.
Okay.
And
I when you give me the links, I'll make sure to put it out there, and I will send an email out to all of you who came tonight so that you can have access to those links. And I'll also put Harriet's links in there and access to the show tonight in case you want to re-listen to it and get some more information.
yeah, and actually, if they, my guess is that it is on the website, but I don't remember what the link is. It's late.
It is late for you. Awesome.
Yeah, late.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, you must realize that it's 3 hours ahead.
Yes, they
I'm
don't.
in
She's
Ohio.
She's in Ohio. So yes, so thank you all for showing up tonight. If you have any questions, this is like a half a second left because I want to let you go off to your dinner or whatever it is that you need to do this evening. It was such a pleasure. Harriet, I'm going to just bring you up here
Yeah,
for
this
a
was
moment.
great. And if Linda can stay for 2 minutes afterward, I'd like to.
Talk to her.
Thank you for everyone who came. This
Yes,
was
Yes.
thank you
very
all.
engaging, very enriching. And I think we all learned some things new.
Yes. Yes, really, really powerful stuff. And I am thrilled that you up there have showed up, because that means, hey, we had a really good turnout today. And that
Yeah.
shows that this is really, really vital information, and that there is an interest and a passion for helping women to become empowered and to help enable and support women in transforming the world. So thank you
Exactly.
so much for joining. I'm going to say goodbye for now. Our next meeting, who do I have for our next? Oh, it's all about exercise and women in motion. So I have a woman who is like a long distance runner, and then I have a dancer coming on, and that is on March 25th. And you will be receiving information about that in my usual channels of promotion. So come back again to more Healers Connection. Have a great evening, and bye for now.
Bye.